Good morning and welcome to our April Downtown Management Forum. We are happy to have Marta Villa back again this year. The 1 year later is, in case any of you didn't know, she was with us about this time last year to discuss what was going on in the real estate market using international trends and discussing next steps and what towns should be thinking about with potential closures because of COVID. So we're very happy to have you back, Marta. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Downtown New Jersey is a nonprofit education and advocacy organization working to revitalize our downtowns. We provide lots of educational opportunities through print articles, technical assistance, these roundtables, which are now at this point monthly virtual as opposed to quarterly in person, various webinars, as well as the annual conference, which was back in January. And those of you who did attend the conference, just a reminder that you can go back and still watch those recordings if you missed any of the sessions. We also do advocacy, and we like to recognize our member through awards and member spotlights. We've been doing these online forums for a little over a year now. Everybody asks me during the meeting or after the meeting, can I get the recording? They are all up on our website for all of the past forums. And this one, as soon as we've got it processed and all that, will be posted up on our website as well. Upcoming forums, we are still working on a date and finalizing speakers, but we will be talking about cannabis since it's the hot topic here in New Jersey. In June, we won't be hosting our own forum because we're participating in 2 other events. We're doing a COVID lessons learned from tactical to practical, and this has to do with tactical urbanism, use of the streets, and that'll be part of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Summit, which is going to be a free conference. So, and I said I would heavily advertise our slot, and you're all welcome to attend. And then June 11th, we are also doing a session at the New Jersey Planning and Redevelopment Conference, which is a paid conference. And that is a combination of APA New Jersey and the New Jersey Futures, 2 conferences that normally take place in January and March. They're combined for a conference in June. Should be a really good event. And then finally, we've already talked to Cristina Fuentes. She expects the board to approve the next round of NJEDA programs in July. And so we have her penciled in to give us an overview of those programs once the board has approved them. So stay tuned for those future forums coming up. So without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Marta.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I like seeing all of you guys. Nice to see you all. It's been an interesting year, right? So I just want to tell you a little bit about me. A former downtown manager myself for almost 17 years. I'm now a retail real estate broker, and for the last dozen years or so at the 2 largest companies, 7 years at CBRE, the last 5 years at JLL. I run the retail department at JLL. We're based in Parsippany. That's my team. Currently, we are working with a number of different tenants that are expanding, and I can show this slide again later when we talk about tenants that are expanding and what may or may not be appropriate for a downtown environment and what their sizes and requirements are. But the year is certainly off to a better start. I will say that, and it's feeling more normal and busy like in a regular year. Last year, I would say that we were at about 50% production. And what that means for me personally, and just to relate it to you on the street, is like if I normally do 40 deals in a year, 40 leases, or 35 leases and 5 sales. Last year I did about 20. So it was about 50% down in terms of actual transactions. What that means in terms of income is not a direct correlation, because a lot of times in the work that I do, there's a lag into collecting money. So it might take like a year to build a store, for example, and in which case a broker doesn't earn income until the store is typically open and operating. So I thought what I would do is give you guys, if I do this full screen, how do I advance the slide?
I'm on mute. You can use your down arrow. You should be able to.
That's not happening.
How about right arrow? No? All right, hit escape and you can get out of full screen and then you can do it the regular way.
Thank you. Okay, so today's presentation is a combination of me and research collected through Jones Lang LaSalle. We have paid research people. We collect data from really around the globe, from a lot of people that are involved in different cities around the globe. And if you can recollect, last year we had information real time from Asia and Europe, as well as our own major cities and states. So now, it's kind of a year later, things have started to recover. I don't know fully if we've hit the reset button. I always thought last year that it wouldn't be until this February, but I thought people would be back to work in the spring a year ago. And now it looks more like people are not coming back to, urban office buildings or suburban office buildings probably until the end of the summer. That's what, at least what I'm hearing from clients and seeing in the business. So some of this information I'm going to share with you is from national research, and I'm going to dovetail it into what's happening locally, at least in my realm. And you guys can ask questions throughout. Certainly, that doesn't bother me at all. So consumer spending has definitely returned to pre-COVID levels, but many retail categories have not recovered. And one of the slides that we're going to show you is that, even though there's less trips to the store, the ticket prices are higher, right? So they're buying more, or certainly buying more online. Full service dining, entertainment, and fitness, are definitely lagging. We all know that. Movie theaters still slowly starting, and many have filed bankruptcy this year. And urban retail versus suburban retail is also lagging. So the downtown districts, like the urbans, the Newarks, parts of Jersey City, those with the major Class A office buildings are just not experiencing the comeback because the people aren't there. The sales that we're experiencing, they're not equally distributed. Last year, we focused on essential retailers, the home improvements, the grocery, things of that nature, pharmacy, liquor. Home improvement had a huge year, but, even though spending declined earlier in the year, we've surpassed last year's spending already, and it's only the first quarter. So all of these sectors are performing differently. And the chart on the right, I don't know if you can see it on my screen, I see people, but it just kind of shows you how things are performing and who's exceeded, over last year. So home improvement, sports and hobby, outdoor life became very prevalent last year. I don't know if you saw it in your towns, but, people got back into biking, people got back into running, kind of those solo activities where they could be outdoors had a huge year. So that just gives you a snapshot on how some of those stores performed. This also shows you, who had a positive effect, kind of heading down towards negative sales. So mass merchandise, the Walmarts, the Targets, right? No surprise there. The groceries, the ShopRites, the Trader Joe's, the Whole Foods. Home improvement, of course. Everybody focused on their living space and their outdoor spaces last year because we were stuck home for so long. Same thing on the furniture. Pharmacies and drugstores, I think, is a given that they performed, on average with every other year because, look, we take medication and we go to the drugstore. But you can see it starts to dwindle now with electronics, certainly dining, fitness. Apparel had a very, very rough year. We're going to talk about that with some store closures, slide that I have coming up. Entertainment and theaters, we already spoke about. And then, sadly, our department stores. And we can talk about those too. So while there were some retailers that struggled with sales prior to the pandemic, they just couldn't continue running their businesses during the shutdown. So apparel and restaurants, fitness, they took the hardest hit, right? I think that's common sense. Here's, hanging by a thread, basically, some of these retailers trying to come out of that. The bankruptcies, some of them across the bottom, you can see them. We've anticipated that. Last year, we talked about some of the stores that closed. Last year, we exceeded 12,000 store closures, which is a major number in the United States. We weren't sure what it was going to turn out to be. I think last January, we thought maybe it'd be 15,000 stores. So it was slightly better than what the prediction was. This year, the prediction is more around 10,000 stores to close nationally. But some sadness, right? So Lord & Taylor and Brooks Brothers are 200-year-old retailers. So kind of a bummer to see that, for 200 years of a track record, they actually had to close their stores. And the little number below their logo indicates how many stores they're actually closing. Lord & Taylor closed 38 major department stores, and those department stores, I would say on average, are about 250,000 square feet. So think about 250,000 square feet times 38. I mean, it's millions and millions of gross leasable area or retail space nationally. 24-hour fitness, they, believe it or not, are expanding again. So they went bankrupt, they closed 130 stores, and now they're back out talking to their landlords to talk about how to restrike a deal. It's very interesting. JCPenney, another department store, bites the dust. But I have a list, which I didn't put all the logos in here, but I'll just quickly read them to you. Ann Taylor, JCPenney, 24-hour fitness, Bath and Body Works closed 1,735 stores. Bed Bath & Beyond, 63 stores last year. AT&T, 250 stores. Brooks Brothers, we spoke about. Century 21 department stores, directly affecting downtown Morristown. They closed 31 stores. GameStop, 450 stores. GNC, 1,200 stores. I thought this was interesting. Gap, we spoke about last year about their delay in receiving merchandise and deferred payment to their vendors. I don't know if you remember, we spoke about that last year, but their rent roll per month in North America is $115 million to pay for rent for their stores. That's a big nut, right? Oops, where's my mouse? Okay, so this year, who's on the chopping block? A little surprising, Disney, 60 stores of 300, they anticipate closing. Best Buy, only 5, although, there's not so many electronics retailers left, so that's difficult. I guess Costco's trying to step into that space in a bit. Francesca's is I don't know if you know the store, but it's a ladies and juniors apparel and gift. They're typically in malls. There was one in downtown Westfield, certainly. So they're closing 140 stores out of 700. Macy's, 45 stores this year, but another 85 by 2023. So a total of 145 stores they'll close. Bed Bath & Beyond will close another 43 stores this year, although yesterday they announced while they're going to close some stores, they're actually going to reinvest into their existing stores over the next 4 years and retool them and expand their concept called Bye Bye Baby. And then Children's Place closed 122 stores. So again, downtown Westfield, they had the corner. Now it's an Avalon Bay, office. So one of the interesting things I think is, what's the comfort level of people shopping? And I don't know how many of you, I wish I could see your faces, how many of you are back out, shopping in a comfort level, what your comfort level is. The power centers and the suburban shopping environments that are not enclosed are obviously recovering more quickly, and they're seeing regular sales volumes, and in fact, their sales are up. Those that are grocery anchored or, like these big department store, like the Targets and the Walmarts, those anchored centers are exceeding their sales from last year. And grocery, just as its own category, let me see what it said. Online grocery sales grew 52% last year. So that's huge. March, 5 years ago, March 2015, people that dined out expenses surpassed grocery sales. This year, it was the inverse. Grocery sales exceeded dining out. That's not a surprise, but it's a big number. Sales overall, the last 2 months, February was down over last year, 3%. So that's kind of surprising. Last year, it was pre-COVID in February, right? And then we didn't really understand the impact of COVID until March, April, I'll say last year. So February this year was down 3% over last year, but March was up 9% over last year. So things are definitely improving. And they attribute that partly to stimulus checks being received and partly to people having access to the vaccine. So while these suburban shopping centers are seeing most of their foot traffic return, they're still having almost 40% less traffic overall compared to last year. But their sales, as I say, are bigger. Like they're spending more per trip. So that's interesting. And traffic in urban areas like Newark, like Jersey City, parts of Jersey City, parts of Hoboken is down about 60% since last year. So that's a big number also. Hoboken, I think, is less impacted because people live there, right? And so, but as some of those young people's apartments leases are expiring, they're actually leaving the city. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in a year from now. I've talked to our office counterparts, and in the city right now, it's still only about 5 or 6% of office populations in the buildings. So that just means that there's less foot traffic on the streets, right, to support all the local eateries and services. In Hoboken right now, we're probably at about an 8% occupancy in the office buildings at Waterfront Corporate, so not quite 10%, but between now and September, they're hoping to get that number back up to 80%, and then kind of through the remainder of the year get everybody back. But what's going to be different is no one's back full time forever anymore, right? Because we've adapted to the point that we learn how to work from home. And so even if you do go to the office for the purposes of printing or collaboration or production of materials or to work with your admin or meet with your team, I think that's not going to be a 5-day thing, right? Most people are probably going to have some sort of hybrid. And part of that is, I would say, reluctant, dependent on how schools are operating next year as well. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure most kids had at least part of their year at home this year, right? Can anybody show me if everybody's kids are back at school now? Or I don't know, Courtney, can you see them? You're on mute, so I can't hear you.
I said most people don't have their cameras on. So
Oh, they're just listening.
But my child's hybrid. She's 1 week on, 1 week off, but she also goes to private school, and they've been doing that all year. So, but the public school, I think, is going back next week in Jersey City. So, and that they'll also be hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have a couple of months of school. Question on, you were talking about like Hoboken and Jersey City, and while the office is down, I imagine there's a lot more people there, people working from home. So there's a lot more people during the day who typically would be in New York City. So any sense of how that's impacting? I think it said something to the fact that the foot traffic was still down about 60%.
Foot traffic down around the office sector. So like, okay. For example, I have lease space on River Street at Waterfront Corporate Center. Mm-hmm. I have the retail spaces there. So, I've talked to the Chopped, the Orange Theory Fitness, like kind of the users that you would think would be expanding. And, I've basically been rejected based on the fact that they want to be on Washington Street because more of the apartments are along Washington. So it's really neighborhood specific. Mm-hmm. So because the office buildings are empty, that means my leasing is lagging. However, the apartment building leasing up at Maxwell House and Hudson T is a little bit stronger because they have people living there 24/7, right?
Which proves the point that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, and a good mixed use environment is really important. You need to have people living there to help support your retail. Nancy,
well, what we always say, there's a term called retail follows rooftops. Mm-hmm. So, when you look at a large land mass, and it's probably less relevant to this group because we're already working in built environments, but, if you had 20 or 50 acres to master plan, people are like, oh, let's start with the CVS or let's start with the grocery store. But what they don't realize is the grocery store is not coming until there's people to feed.
Yep.
So you got to have the housing first.
Yeah.
Marta. Hey, Marta. Hi.
Hi, Nancy.
It's Nancy. How you doing? Quick question. I don't want to get you off point, but the office space was already starting to see reductions before COVID because of electronic filing. If they don't need as much space, right? Especially like law offices and things like that. At least that's what I've seen with some of my property owners who have office space. I'm wondering if there's conversation about, as Courtney said, changing it to a mix of office and residential, or what the forecast is for office space in downtowns post-COVID, even with between needing less space, physical space, and being able to work remotely. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, I have my own thoughts on that. There's no study, there's no result out there. I mean, I see companies are doing surveys right now with their employees to find out what what their tolerance level for coming back on a regular basis is. And I don't say full-time basis, because as I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be full-time. I think it's going to be regular, but not full-time perhaps. The indicators are, for example, Matt Cali just sold how many office buildings? I think that's an indicator. You know, there's no document that says, you know, what's the future of office. I myself feel like there could have been messaging from the major companies out there saying you need to have your office space, you need to collaborate with your teams. You know, people do need to collaborate, and it is different collaborating on Zoom than it is to be in the same place, right? And the quips like the, hey, did you hear about that? Or did you see that empty space in Ridgewood, or, you know, whatever, that's not happening, right? So there's way less information flow on a frequent basis.
I wonder if office space is actually going to be better because it's easier to adapt to new uses in downtowns than out in remote, you know, big spread out, sprawling office areas.
So in Parsippany, they built a Wegmans adjacent to the office complex, right? And they just built 2 restaurants and had a 24-hour fitness, which is now vacant, and a Panera. So, you know, you're starting to see guys reevaluate their office campuses with these other uses.
Right.
I recently toured College Road down in Princeton. It's a massive office campus, kind of like 4 times the size of Cranford's Business Park, if you will. So it's major, super quiet, eerie feeling, you know, just like building after building, set back from the road, really very few cars in the parking lot. You know, you just look at that, and then you look at like Lawrenceville Mall, you know, Quaker Bridge, or some of those sort of adjacent anchors, and you wonder, like, how is this going to be retooled? Because you know there's an inevitable retooling, we just don't know what it is yet.
Right.
I mean, I was in Midtown. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have been to Manhattan in a year, but it was the first time that I was there in a year. And, you know, let's say there's 10 stores on a street, 6 were shuttered. So that was a very high percentage, but that's specific to Midtown. Upper West Side, Upper East Side, my counterparts in New York are telling me are almost more normal. But this is the back to work timeline. And I put the arrow over 3Q. You know, it's creeping up as people are going back. Really, they're not even coming back till this summer. And we're already in April, which they're saying 30% are returning. And I can tell you for sure that that's not a number that's being hit here yet. But, you know, optimistically, they're saying that we'll get close to full capacity by the end of the year. It's probably going to be through next May, I'm guessing. But, you know, my crystal ball is still a little fuzzy on that. And this talks about, you know, the return again, the downtown and urban versus the suburban timelines as to how they're going to recover. But again, you know, it's a best guess, right? So late winter, early spring for, you know, suburban demand, etc. And I think part of that depends on the center and the geography of which it's located, including the demographics and the traffic patterns, etc. I thought this was interesting, and really like there's one dot missing here, but last year, fourth quarter, there was a negative 30 million square feet absorption nationally of retail space. And so that's a massive amount of space. And to give you some relativity to that, like I myself, my team and I, we are leasing agents for about 1 million square feet of retail space, right? Not all of that 1 million square feet is vacant, but let's say 40% of it is vacant. And so some of it is land site, some of it is empty banks, some of it is shopping center with a portion that's vacant. So of 1 million square feet, we're working on about a 40% leasable space. And then in addition to that, I have 1.6 million square feet of Sears and Kmart's. That's just me, right? So, you know, there's CB, there's Jeffrey, there's Goldstein, there's all these other companies. I mean, somebody's got Macy's they're working on. Hudson Bay has retained their own real estate. They're doing their own real estate, right? But if I have basically 2.5 million square feet under agency, that's a tremendous amount of space. And there's 200 of me in the company, right? So it's daunting, but it's opportunity at the same time. So, you know, I don't know if we need to focus on this because we're not anywhere but New Jersey, but the Sun Belt, Texas, those places are growing strongly. DC's actually, the suburbs of DC are doing well. Interesting, in DC right now, Home Depot's expanding in the urban market. So they're trying to cannibalize themselves. They had such a gangbusters year last year. They're looking at 3 new locations. That was surprising to me. Here on this slide, you know, for all of you that have been around a minute, you know, somehow we're always at 5% vacancy. How can that be? But we are. Somehow we're always at 5% vacancy on these quarterly reports. And the average rents pretty much nationally in retail don't get above $25 a foot. That's still, they still hover between $20, $22 and $25 a foot. So I think that's kind of funny. If you've been in this business for a while, these things don't change. I told you about the negative absorption of space. The takeaway, these are my notes in the yellow. So has anything changed over the year in terms of deal structure? And we can peel this onion back as much as you want to in your towns. You can tell me maybe some specific examples, but I can tell you that pretty much none of my landlords have adjusted their pricing yet. And here we are a year later. And I will say that I'm still sitting on quite a bit of vacant space. Their expectations have not changed one bit. And I think, you know, to their credit, they value their real estate. They're perhaps in a financial position that they don't have to settle for less. It's more prudent for them to just wait another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months and get a regular rent. What I have seen is retailers came out of the box last spring to quickly take advantage of, you know, a renegotiation of their current lease terms. And then what I saw was landlords extracting something for it. So if they had a no build clause, or if they had an exclusive use right, like no other coffee user or no other bakery, landlords were able to get those things back so that they could lease other spaces as a result of their either rent deferment or what have you. I don't know too many tenants that have been evicted successfully yet. I think most landlords tried to work with their tenants, most, certainly not all.
Hey, Marta, can we just pause right here? Because I kind of asked the question, what other people are seeing. Is now a time if people want to chime in that they're seeing something different than what you've said?
About landlords being more negotiable?
Yeah. Whether is everybody kind of seeing that? Are the rents staying the same? I'm seeing nods. So.
Well, you could just drive through Westfield and look at the number of stores. Or Englewood, or, you know, wherever.
Be careful.
I love you, Mom.
I've been seeing our landlords have been working with their tenants. And also, we have so much interest from new business. And I think people are seeing opportunity because the rents are a bit down. And especially existing restaurant space, they're gone so quickly. Because new restaurants are coming in, they see the space already fit up for them. So we're under fire. We're on fire right now, which is kind of trying to wonder why exactly, but we are.
Who's speaking? I can't see.
Beth. Hi, Marta. It's Beth Littman.
Hi. Oh, hi. What town are you talking about?
In Livingston.
What about him?
And
So people built restaurants. Built restaurants are definitely of interest. If it has equipment, an eventing system in place, that's definitely a hot commodity. To your point, in Newark, I have an empty, what's called walk-to-walk restaurant. I just had 4 offers pretty much at full price for that vented equipment already in place restaurant, which is kind of surprising considering the foot traffic is down, right? But that particular landlord is working with these tenants to not really commence rent until they're back in the office. So it's a good situation. All right, so let's keep going. So I think I mentioned before, I thought reset was going to be February of this year. I'm not sure if true reset has occurred yet. And, you know, maybe at the end we can talk about that for a minute, but I think it's kind of a rolling reset button at this point, probably over the next 6 months, depending upon when people return to their offices and their daily lives. This is a comment, really lending is happening now, where it wasn't at all a year ago. I can tell you I lost a lot of deals last year because of lack of bank participation and lending. This year it seems that, you know, either owners are are flush with somehow they have private investment, or banks are lending again on retail properties, and that is what I'm seeing. So transaction types. This is more personal for me, like what's happening, and it could be indicative of what you're seeing in your markets. I anticipated last year, and it's turning out to be true, that it would be a big landlord agency leasing job coming up, right? With people losing tenants in their current spaces and looking for leasing brokers to help them market those available spaces. So there's definitely that. There are tenants that are also doing dispositions of their current locations. So primarily I'm seeing banks dispose of a lot of extra units, or not extra units, there's through the consolidation or through just underperforming banks themselves. I'm seeing a lot of disposition of banks. And, you know, personally, I have 12 banks listed right now. 6 just went to contract, but, you know, that's kind of interesting that there's so many that are going to be disposed of. The other thing that I saw was childcare. You know, we're trying to transact like 5 childcare buildings right now throughout the state, where, you know, for obvious reasons, the kids weren't going to daycare, right? And so they couldn't support their business model any longer. And so they're selling the buildings. But on the flip side of both of those, both the bank and the childcare, there's both an acquisition side to that. So in the case where you might be disposing of a bank in one place, maybe they had 2 that were kind of mediocre, maybe they're just consolidating to one location now on a better traffic pattern to increase deposits. On the childcare, we're seeing growth from a company called Higher Ground Education out of California that's aggressively growing in New Jersey. Would love to be in some of your towns, actually. And if you have any sites for childcare, you can please call me. You know, they're a Montessori school. They would take 8,000 to 13,000 square feet. They prefer to buy, certainly. But, you know, so that's one that's taking advantage of this opportunity and retooling and looking to be online for next school year. Apparel, you know, disposition of certain apparel users, Models certainly, and others, and Taylor Space. I'm only seeing really one tenant expand in the apparel category who's got 4 stores in New Jersey right now. And we're trying to look at some other locations. It's a ladies and juniors apparel store, about 1,500 square feet. What else is happening with the retailers is they are, I'll call right sizing their premises. So where they used to be 15,000 feet, or even Burlington Coat, you know, Burlington was 65,000 square feet. Now Burlington is looking to be 30 to 35,000 square feet. So they've cut their footprint in half. They're going to reduce their number of merchandise items, and they're going to retool the flow inside the stores, right, and open more stores. So that's interesting. Tenants have also, I mean, a business line is basically created out of this sort of downsizing and restructuring. They call it the restructuring division. But basically, it's like you hire a brokerage company or a consultant to negotiate a better rent structure for yourself across the board on all of your leases, or negotiate better tenant rights, or deferment of payment, or whatever the case may be. But you want to basically open up your lease negotiation all over again, even though it's already signed, if your landlord is willing, and work out a new deal, which could extend your term, you know, and it could make your rent lower now and you make it up later. But there's a number of ways to deal with that. Some landlords have been willing to do this, and it's helped a lot of people stay in business. Drive-throughs, I think we talked about it last year as a prediction, but for sure it was right. You know, drive-throughs are expanding like crazy. There's a lot of competition for good corners at lights. It's a function of how much land could actually be gotten, right? So, you know, you can fit a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through on a half an acre, but you can't fit a Wawa on that, right? You would need 2 acres. Chipotle and Panera now won't even look at a non-drive-through, right? So that's where, like, you know, they're in some of your downtowns. But the fact now they won't look at downtowns at all, sadly, which I think is, you know, kind of a miss, because, you know, kids can't drive. So they're missing that whole after school thing. What else? Medical. I don't know if you're seeing medical or PT in your areas, but there's a lot of medical expansion. I do leasing in mixed use buildings. So if it's an office building with retail at the base, in the past, landlords have shied away from medical because they view it as a negative to leasing office space, to see sick people like hang around your building. But that's changing. That attitude is changing. And then the other big thing is the big box retenanting and the controlling of a massive amount of square footage. So, for example, in the Kmart world, it's an old discount retailer, hasn't really adapted, I would say, to modern day, large format discount retailing. And they're still operating some of their stores in New Jersey, but think about their leases are so old. Some of the leases that I've seen for those guys are back from 1960. So they're 60-year-old leases. So think about the economics of those leases, right? From being that old. So there's an opportunity there for them to act as a landlord. So bottom line here on the future of retail, less selling space, fewer mid-price retailers, technology impact on how retailing is happening, and again, trying to create nice experiences in the shopping environment. Mid-price retailers, mostly apparel, are struggling. Although I read something recently where they're all really focusing on their marketing and their technology applications and their apps to try to improve that. I'm going to skip over this. I'm going to share this with Courtney. If anybody wants to look at it, they certainly can. We talked about the reduction of retail space. Some of you have malls in your towns, and that's going to be a big question mark. Livingston, for example, has a mall, has an empty Macy's box, has an empty Sears box, except for we're doing COVID vaccines there right now. And then you've got Lord & Taylor, right? And the mall itself is for sale. So that's a big question mark, how to handle that. What you guys may not be aware of is there's layers of complicated legal documents restricting uses there. So you can't do multifamily in a department store because there's a covenant with the malls and the other boxes in the property. So all of those things will have to be renegotiated. These projects are going to take years to figure that out. And it's not just one, right? There's 150 of them across the country. So I just foresee that being a challenge, and they're just going to have to create a hierarchy of which ones they want to tackle first.
Just a quick FYI on that, and I had put it in the chat for everybody. EDA announced they're bringing back the 21st Century Grant Program, which is basically a planning grant to figure out what to do with spaces like the malls, the offices, etc. I tried to get an answer as to, because they do these press releases and then you go to the website for the actual grant and it still says, we're on hold. Tried to get an answer as to ETA for that. I haven't gotten an answer, but stay tuned, that'll be coming.
Okay. This slide speaks to, the strength of e-commerce, certainly as a result of the pandemic. No surprises there. I think this was interesting to me. I highlighted it. Curbside pickup, huge boon to business, right? Even brick and mortar stores. A year ago, only 7% of retailers offered curbside pickup. As of last August, almost 44% of retailers offered curbside pickup. So that's a big increase. Target in itself, curbside pickup grew over 700% just last quarter. So that's huge. That curbside pickup is huge. So buy online, pick up at the store. Buy online, pick up at the store. Then you don't have to wait for delivery, I guess. And everybody's trying to figure out how to adapt that model. There's a couple of new tenants that are out in the market, Shipt and GoPuff. GoPuff is actually taking brick and mortar stores, and they are they're basically delivery services. So you call up and you say, I need a roll of toilet paper, some Advil and some chips, and they'll bring it to your house in 15, 20 minutes. And I just submitted a bunch of sites to them. They're actually going to be, a brick and mortar store, but basically to fulfill at home delivery. So, and they take about 5,000 square feet. They just did a fundraise. This was shocking to me. They raised $1.15 billion a week ago or a month ago And they have a valuation of almost $9 billion for this concept, which is fascinating. Instacart, have any of you tried Instacart? You can order stuff on an app, and somebody like a Lyft or almost like Uber driver is an Instacart delivery person, similar theme. They go to Quick Check or wherever, get your items and deliver it to you, and you pay them a surcharge. Shipped, similar concept to GoPuff. It's owned by Target. Target just paid a lot of money for Shipped, and they're going to grow that business. So this is actually something that I think might go to some of these more urban downtown environments, because people want the convenience of the home delivery, right? Dining out and entertainment. I mean, so many of you should be commended. You did such a good job using the streets and allowing your tenants in downtown to operate throughout, even the cold months. And I've already seen, like in Milburn, they've already closed the street, and I'm sure in other places they're doing that and permitting everybody to come back outside, because it's actually been a pretty complimentary April for that. But people are looking to get back out and dine out, and I'm slowly seeing it here. I don't know if you guys are seeing it in your towns, but I am definitely seeing it. This is just a list of who I am seeing today expand. So grocery for sure. I got an email from one of you guys in your downtown, you lost a King's. So who's expanding? So Lidl's expanding. Lidl's a Prague-based grocer that's come to the United States. Their first store was in Union on Route 22. The size of Lidl is about 30,000 square feet. I see one under construction in Belleville. I've seen one in a lot of different places, down on Route 35. They're becoming a little bit more community-based. I think their first foray was really highway specific, but that's somebody to keep in mind. It would be a good replacement for King's. Is about the same size, like 30,000 feet, unless you had a smaller King's, in which case it wouldn't work for you. Sprouts, however, is only 23,000 square feet. Sprouts is West Coast-based organic grocer. They've been kicking a lot of tires. I haven't heard of any leases signed yet, but they've been at it for about a year and a half, looking at the market in New Jersey, figuring out what their strategy is going to be. I spoke to their broker recently, and he said they're going to start probably in Paramus and Clifton, right? No surprise there, and then go from there. Amazon has a grocery concept now with a large fulfillment center. It's called Amazon Fresh. They opened their unit out in California. They have signed leases in New Jersey. That size is about 40,000 square feet. Whole Foods, continues to grow. I've seen different sizes of Whole Foods from 35,000 to 55,000. The last two, Clark and Chimney Rock, that I'm aware of, are both over 50,000. ShopRite, Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's just changed their broker after maybe a dozen years or more. So they now have a new broker team. Trader Joe's is still about 15,000 square feet in most cases. I would say except Westfield. For some reason that's always been an anomaly and continues to be. So on the grocery front, there's a few more. There was just an 8,000 square foot lease signed up in Paramus called like it's like B52 or something like that. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a gourmet grocer that signed on Route 17. I get you the article if you want to see it. It was in yesterday's Google News, I think. The quick serve and the fast casual drive-through concepts are still all expanding. Chipotle, Panera, Dunkin', McDonald's, Jersey Mike's, Bubba Coos. Jersey Mike's and Bubba Coos are not drive-through, but Raising Cane's is new to the market. They're just coming up here from Florida area, and Slim Chicken is new, and they're looking for drive-throughs. So if you have an empty bank in your town, please let us know. The home improvement and furnishing stores are still expanding. In most cases, they're very large. At Home is 150,000 feet. Home Depot, you all know, is 150,000 feet. It doesn't really pertain to us, sadly. However, mattress stores like, Casper or Mattress Warehouse, Mattress Firm, Mattress Plus, these stores are only 4,000 feet. So there's a possibility there. There's a lot of medical users in the market, as well as physical therapy. Primary care testing centers like LabCorp Quest. COVID testing centers, even though they're short-term leases, there are companies that are looking for locations to provide that service. So, and the urgent care is typically 3,000 feet. So that does work for a lot of downtown participants. They have spaces that are that size. Cannabis, I was glad, Courtney, to see that you're going to do something on that, because I've been getting a lot of calls about that too. And I'm not sure, where the laws are at. I looked at this a couple of years ago and it seemed like, very controversial. And still yesterday I read Wayne is blocking it. Ocean City's blocking it. Bridgewater's blocking it. And it's a local decision. So I'll be curious to see that. I actually got a call from a cannabis company a couple of days ago that they want to open a unit and they want to be in an affluent area. So I'm so curious, is Ridgewood going to permit it? Is Westwood going to permit it? I mean, these things, I don't know. That'll be a good conversant seminar. You guys can see the rest of that. What's not expanding right now, kids entertainment, Chuck E. Cheese filed bankruptcy, no surprise there, but there was a lot of like Kids Club, Kids Empire. There was quite a few kids concepts that were expanding 2 years ago. Sky Zone, Urban Air Trampoline, all these guys, I think, got the wind out of their sails last year. And I'm just starting to see blasts again to solicit sites for something like that. Ghost kitchens, there's been a lot of talk about ghost kitchens, but I only know one guy that has a ghost kitchen. And for those that have been looking for it, I've gotten a few calls, but mostly they've been on the waterfront. They really want to be in kind of the density to have 10 or 20, restaurant labels to be able to deliver to that population. I haven't seen any going out to, Hunterdon County or Somerset County yet at this point.
Yeah, we have a couple in Jersey City, but they're smaller. I think it's just businesses that couldn't hack it through COVID and decided to combine and do a ghost kitchen as opposed to like an intentional ghost kitchen.
Well, that's how,
Yeah,
necessity breeds invention.
exactly.
All right, so this is really just, some ideas for you guys. Some of it's same as last year. But, zoning is so critical. It moves like a battleship, super slow. I've had, I have a lot of listings in downtowns. I'm a big downtown advocate, as you guys know, and it's just frustrating when you get like a Duck Donuts that comes to you and it's not a permitted use. And it's like, come on, guys, like, it's COVID. We haven't seen that many restaurants expanding. It's a trendy kind of cool thing. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But I would love to see downtown New Jersey or you guys who are the leaders in your communities, write recommendations on an overlay zoning as a result of this. I think we need to be more flexible. I think, the second bullet is really encourage board flexibility. Maybe we need to educate them more when they're hearing these applications instead of picking it apart, because they're two spaces deficient in their application. Like, let's get it filled up, let's get the taxes paid, and then let's worry about it in 5 years, when everything's healthy again. The other thing is, I would love to hear a little bit, Court, I don't know if we can open it up, but how are you guys interfacing with your landlords? And is there anything that we can do, even as a brokerage community? Is there something that I can do to help you guys, even small like coffee clusters or something in your towns, to talk with some of these landlords and talk about some deal specific items, or how to make a deal perhaps in their spaces if they're being, recalcitrant in their approach, they won't budge off the price or whatever the case may be. I would make myself available to you guys. This was a new idea. Consider using SID money for fit up, venting, white boxing on a match basis. I show a lot of space, a lot of vacant space. You know how much of it looks really nice? Not a lot. It would be so helpful if it was a white box, even if it wasn't brand new air conditioning, brand new bathroom, just clean it out, paint it, get the smell out, whatever the case, get the old fixtures out. I'm working with a landlord currently. Some of his windows are blocked off because they made a selling wall and it's painted dark green. Okay, how does that, you walk in there and you feel like, if it was white and the windows were open, it would show so much better, right? And in the built environment, which is what we all have in downtowns, we're stuck with the size. Like we can't really, it's 2,500 square feet. Oh, you want 1,800 square feet? Well, I can't really get rid of that 600 square feet to make you happy. It's a function of the economics having to be blended, sadly. So, we're sensitive to the built environment, but we try to have to make it as best we can. And I know many of you already do this. You work with your township building department crew or your zoning officer or whatever. And I'm sure you're already the front runner expediting them into their applications and doing intake meetings or whatever. But for those that are new, perhaps, that's a suggestion that you could use. So that kind of wraps up my, I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question if I can.
Sure. Real quick,
ma'am.
Marta, hold on one second, Joan. Marta, you want to stop screen share just so that we can see each other
Yeah.
in Brady Bunch?
Sure.
There we go.
That's awesome.
All right,
That's
Joan, go ahead.
Yeah, Joan Groom from the Ridgewood Chamber of Commerce. As you know, towns like ours are all over New Jersey, and our thing is we're a strolling town, and we are packed, or we're packed with mom and pop shops. And I didn't quite hear you talk, Marta, about what do you think is the future of the mom and pop shop, knowing that Amazon.com is just, the big thumb coming down on us. What is your feel for all that?
So I love Ridgewood. I've done some leases in Ridgewood for Mr. Coomber. It's a nice town, very walkable town. I think that you guys have a nice assortment of both independent, regional, and national tenants, which you're very lucky. A lot of towns don't get that. From a leasing strategy standpoint, whether it be in a downtown or a shopping center, we have to think about Amazon resistancy. So what uses, what personal services are Amazon resistant? Now that's not to say that that's COVID resistant, right? So hair salons, get your hair washed at a hair salon during COVID was not a permitted thing. Right now it's permitted on a, reduced basis, I guess. But, the personal service, the dining out, it's always going to be more safe. But then here's the other question, which these aren't exact solutions, but, it's things that I've been thinking about. We used to recommend 35 to 45% of a project, whether it be your downtown street or a shopping center, to be food. Right? So food makes a street. You have 5 or 6 restaurants facing each other. You have instant nightlife and, a nice amenity for a community. But, with restrictions on capacity, it's been very hard to pay rent. So then now the question is, what is the right percentage of a project, whether it be a downtown street, 4 to 6 blocks of Red Bank or Ridgewood or a shopping center, how much is the right amount of food now? I don't think we've come to a conclusion on that quite yet, but look, I've gotten some calls from boutique fitness for the first time in a year. So I am seeing independents who are in the fitness realm looking at new concepts in fitness, because large scale fitness may not be as successful as it was before, right? I mean, we have to anticipate that you don't want to work out with 100 other people. I think the boutique fitness is a category that we in downtowns could certainly focus on. Cycle bars, Pure Bar, Row House, Club Pilates. These are all like 2,000, 2,500 square feet. Orange Theory Fitness is 3,500 square feet. F45, same thing. Like those categories, even though they're national chains, they're franchise driven. So they're independent business people, they're mom and pops with a label, right? But if you're talking about like the local apparel store, like Little Sky we had down at 171 Ridgewood that went out of business, those sorts of stores, that's going to be a competitive environment moving forward, certainly because of so much online shopping now. So I don't think there's a definitive answer on that one yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And Jean, I see your hand up, so just one second. But at least what I'm observing in Jersey City, I'm actually surprised more isn't closed. Talking to some of my restaurateurs, I think they're if they can, they're breaking even. They're like, I'm just keeping open. I'm doing what I can to break even, and then hopefully, it'll be good afterwards. And they're just trying to hold on. The ones that are gone, we're probably going to go anyway, right? So at least that's what I'm observing. But we'll see. I got Jean's hand was first, then Nancy, then Bob.
Well, so, but one other thing
Oh,
on the
sure.
independents, they, those that are applying technology to their independent store are going to be more successful. And
Mhm.
those that apply tactics for customer loyalty is the other thing.
Yeah.
To have a relationship with your client. So it'll be hard to have a multi-unit store concept and be as successful unless you have super managers that are knowing the customers like that.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Go ahead, Jean. You're on mute, just so you know. There you
Hi, I'm Jeannie Johnson. I am a volunteer in Ridgewood and worked pretty closely with the pedestrian plaza that we had last summer. And as we are sort of negotiating now whether we should continue with it, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. One of the ideas that we have discussed is, to sort of what would you recommend? Do you think that it's important for retailers to put their items outside and have like a flea market feel? Or should we create more irresistible storefronts, such as, putting items outside and children's activities to keep children busy while the parents go in and shop? I'm just trying to design a way of so the retailers can captivate this captive audience that we have in the pedestrian plaza. So if you just speak a little bit about that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you have a photo of the pedestrian plaza you could share?
I'm sure I could find one if you.
How big is it? Is it a block front?
Sorry?
Is it a block front? Like how long is it?
Oh, it's very long. It's our entire central business district. We could close our street. I guess it's 3 full blocks.
So it's Ridgewood Avenue.
It's Ridgewood Avenue from Broad Street all the way down to Walnut, and then the side streets are closed. And then we have entertainment in the streets during the day, and then we have free concerts in the park at night. And it's just on the weekends. We just do this on Saturday and Sunday. And, it does bring thousands of people to the community. And now we're sort of at an impasse because some of the retailers and some of the service retailers, such as the UPS store and the cobbler, the shoe repairman, are dry cleaners, they're saying, gee, Saturday is my busiest day and I'm not able to do anything. And I'm not sure if the pedestrian plaza is really affecting their business or if it's just COVID in general with people not using those particular services. I don't know how many people are really getting their clothes dry cleaned right now or their shoes because they're not walking anywhere, right? So I don't know, what to chalk their lack of business, if it really is the pedestrian plaza or not. So, we're just really struggling at trying to solve that problem. And anybody that has a more experienced voice in that arena, I am just desperate to hear from them.
So a couple things. One is, as leaders in your communities, no one's ever going to be all happy. So you're always going to get some criticism. That's just the nature of the beast. And, thank you for being a volunteer and doing what you're doing. I think that's great. But that being said, I have mixed feelings about closing streets on a permanent basis or a regular basis. Traffic flow is an important component of the functioning of commercial real estate. And when you close it or you bottleneck it like that, I'm happy to hear it's only on the weekends. I feel like you probably could overcome whatever the logistical issues may or may not be for those stores. Maybe there's a drop point or you're working with them to make accessibility to their locations through the back. If there's a parking lot, I don't know exactly where the UPS store is, but it's a period in time. We're not doing this for the next 10 years. We're doing this for the next, 10 months. And maybe it's, maybe it's not 9 in the morning, maybe it starts at 12, right? So if people want to do stuff in the morning, they can get out, get their stuff done. And then if they can have a more leisurely afternoon to take advantage of your activities and your entertainment. It sounds like there's a way to negotiate that. I do think having the things, outdoor and indoor be more united and flowing, merchandise outside, activities outside, merchandise inside, activities inside. I think we have to make those more seamless. And even in shopping centers, I'm looking at changing storefronts to have retractable doors or opening up doors. I think that fresh air component is not going away. So if there's, you know, a SID facade grant in your town and you have a couple of key locations that are either being re-tenanted or, you know, high performing retailer, you know, maybe it's time to show an example and put some SID dollars into helping defray the cost of those doors and having those storefronts be more open. So, you know, I don't know if the airport is a good example, but you know how those grates lift up and then the store, you're in and out of the store, you know, there's really no separation to the common area. Your sidewalk is your common area. So, and I guess if you're closing the street, you can spill out into the street and, you know, kind of program that space. I mean, I'm happy to look at it specifically. I know Ridgewood Avenue, I don't know the start and stop, but to me, I would have to equate it with a store. You said it was by Orange Lake frozen yogurt or the movie theater and went to wherever, I would be better at it. But-
Another thought, and Marta and I disagree on this. I am pro pedestrian malls, and we have great example, but it does depend. You know, what your whether there are alternatives for traffic. Is this the only road to get through your town? Then, you know, maybe not. But you know, at least in Jersey City, we saw, you know, some of the people who were against it actually now love it and they get it. And I think the answer is yes, Jeannie. Outside activities, outside retail, yes. And then the other thing, another thought that came in when Marta was talking about either a facade program, you could also, if it's a substantial improvement to the facade, it can't just be painting and maybe a light bulb because that's considered maintenance, but a town can do an abatement for that type of thing, offer a 5-year abatement on the improvement. So that's an option to try to encourage people to make those substantial improvements. So we had Nancy next.
Thanks. I just had a question, Marta. Are there any bookstores expanding? And with regard to the grocery, like somebody like Traders, what is there, have those stores reduced the radius that they won't open near themselves or near other stores because of the increase in sales and the potential longstanding increase?
So no to the bookstore, sadly. And on the Trader Joe's radius restriction, there's been no change. As I said, they changed their broker. It's Katz and Associates now, Amy Stats. And they haven't gotten their plan yet for 2021-22, which they're working on now. So I mean, I don't know what the targets are at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Bob?
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, Marta. My question is about experiential retail, as we call it. We have in Westfield, we have an interesting example where we have a property owner who had the Ann Taylor that closed, and he decided to reinvest in his property, and he opened a temporary, we'll see if it's temporary. It's called Selfie Stations NJ, and it literally is 20 booths made up with different backdrops where people pay to come in, both individuals, groups, and then eventually larger groups as that is allowed, and take selfies with all these different backdrops. And so far, so good. It's really doing quite well and attracting people from all over the place, including New York City. But my question is, with COVID, where do you see experiential retail coming back, sort of, or still being at bay because of the?
Retail is by its very nature experiential, right? Traditional retail brick and mortar stores where you could touch and feel the clothing, you could try it on, you could interact with the sales clerk, you could see your friends. So retail's always been experiential. So yes, I see it coming back. I think there's a human need for that. You know, you can only shop so much online and it gets frustrating, and then you never return the stuff and you just wasted $200 or $40 or whatever. I think we've all been there. So I do see that experiential stuff. I think that's brilliant. The guy did that. You know, he's going to have to change those, I guess, those stations over time, right? People are going to want to see refreshing.
Yep.
Right. It's almost like your window merchandising. Like, you don't put one window in for the summer. You put one window in and then you start to change it, you know, a piece a week, or, you know, every 2 weeks, a full change, or, you know, so it's kind of like that. Like our expectation as humans, like things move so fast now visually for us that we can't do stagnant things. So I'll be curious. I'd love to get the guy's sales volumes, offline and hear how that's going. What is he charging for that?
$20 an hour.
It's interesting. And that's a group or an individual?
That's an individual.
God bless him. Who else? I saw Bob Goldsmith there. Hi, Bob. Hey, Linda.
Bob did make a comment when you were speaking about redevelopment can move much faster than the zoning battleship. So, because you were talking about, rezoning. But I think that depends on what you're talking about. But yeah.
Bob, have you ever seen redevelopment led by a tenant when the landlord's not cooperative?
Good question.
That was my idea yesterday for one of my tenants who's having a difficult time with it.
I don't have, but it's a very creative idea.
Might be a new market for Bob. You're breaking up, Bob. We can kind of not hear you, but anybody else
just-
have? Oh,
I have a question.
hey, Robin.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I have two questions. One is we're in opportunity zone and in Flemington, New Jersey, we're fully 100% opportunity zoned. And while we have a lot of development that's about to happen, almost all of it sounds like housing, which I think is something we need. We really haven't seen an opportunity zone project. Is that something that is mattering in your world, Marta? That's question number one. And number two is with our we have many properties that haven't seen a restaurant in 10 or 20 years and are totally not up to code and really need work. And we keep showing them to the same, it's guy go, garbage in, garbage out. We keep showing the same spaces that nobody really has the wherewithal to invest in. If it's not just facade or venting, are there other grants that people are aware of where the abatement's a great idea, but how do you turn properties that nobody's going to rent into something potential? Because that's really what we need is less unrentable spaces and more potentially rentable spaces, because we have people looking and not enough on the market.
Part of that is a landlord function, right? The landlord has to have the wherewithal to transact the deal. So if your landlord is not in a position to step up and do that, perhaps there's an investment group that you can marry with that landlord or group of landlords, or there's a potential sale down the road there to try to maybe bring somebody in. It sounds like a challenge. It sounds like that particular situation seems to be depressed, and I, not knowing the specifics of it, I don't know if I can answer it directly, but somebody's got to be able to transact and step up financially to make something happen. If it's an as is whereas deal and the thing is falling down, I don't know how I don't know how you can pull that one out. That's a toughie. Anybody else have an idea on that one?
It's
You
more
could get code enforcement in there to make sure they're up to speed on their building itself. That might lead to some improvements.
Yep. we just have a new code enforcer, so we're very hopeful that that'll help. I think it's more a function of being sometimes areas get depressed and people sit on their properties waiting for changes and things, in the meantime, they become less usable, and that's really it.
Yeah, there is the vacant property law in New Jersey that will, if you actually decide to impose that ordinance, you can impose fines. And at some point, the fines will be so much that either they'll do the work or they'll sell the property, and then somebody else will come in and do the work. Bigger cities, I think, have been using it more, but it's available to everybody.
It also sounds like the foundation of a redevelopment plan, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Long-term underutilized property.
yeah.
There's a lead.
Mhm.
I see a comment from Linda in the chat. Marta, is there a model you can use for the one-stop process guidance to share with our building departments to help facilitate retailers, businesses, sidewalk permits, parklets, occasional? And I could jump in and answer. Rawway does
Go
a
for it.
tremendous job with this. Their bid is actually, it's not always a good thing. I think it totally depends on the town, but their bid is actually part of the municipality, and the staff of the bid are municipal employees. And so and they have two directors, and they have slightly different titles, but basically two directors. And one of them is like the liaison to the building department and this and that. And a prime example, their parklets, they paid somebody to create three template designs for the parklets. And that includes like the structures for over the winter type of things. And they told people, if you build one of these three designs, it's fast track through, you don't have to pay the permit. You get a permit, you don't have to pay the fee, et cetera, fast track through the process. So they not only fast track, they went the extra mile and said, here, we did the work. We paid somebody to give you that engineering. So yeah, they're wonderful to talk to. They really do good stuff.
Are they in Rawway asking corporations to pay for and sponsor parklets? That's what's going on now in Newark. The first year when the bid here did parklets, the bid paid for it. In Rawway and other places, are they asking
I
corporations?
think it's all over the place. I've not heard of anybody asking corporations to sponsor it personally. I know that the bids have done it. And then a lot of times it's just the business owner who's out front, is doing it. I think that's an interesting concept, particularly in Newark, where they've been slammed so hard because they have so much office. And I know, what is it? Audible and Prue have already been really good about trying to subsidize the businesses so they don't shut down in this time.
Yeah,
anyone else's town doing that, fundraising for the parklets?
I don't know. I went with a big guilt trip and a PowerPoint to my landlord in Newark, whose name you just mentioned, and said, I think you need to revamp your public spaces.
Yeah.
And your holiday decorations are lacking and your plants are lacking. And I think that to make the public realm better would be, relevant, certainly, and timely. I didn't really get too far, but it's up to us to bring it to their attention nonetheless, right?
Yeah. Bob Zuckerman, are you still there? How did you guys fund your seesaw thing? Was that just out of bid, or did you extra fundraise for that? He might not be there
I
anymore.
think they,
there he is.
Happy to
Oh,
discuss
they
that,
used
Courtney.
grant.
Yes, I am still here. So
Okay.
we brought in these electrified, well-lit seesaws from Montreal, Canada. You may have heard about them in the Garment Center district in Manhattan, and they've been in a lot of other cities. Very, very few suburban towns like Westfield have had them. How did we pay for them? Because they were very expensive. We received money from the Main Street, New Jersey grant that paid for almost all of it. And so, there was some discussion early on, should we really be using some money from the grant for something like this? And the consensus was yes, because it brought so many people to our downtown, both from Westfield and from outside areas, to experience that. That's what I was talking about, experience. And when they're there, if they're coming for the seesaws from, I don't know, Maplewood, we had a lot of people from Maplewood. They're not just going to go to the seesaws and go
That was
home.
a dig, Vic.
No. I'm South. No, they're not just going to go
That's a
there.
dig at both of us.
Yeah.
No. They're not. Like, listen, I would have loved to have it in South Orange too, but it's too expensive. They're not just going to go there, go to the seesaws and leave. They're going to go and spend money, get a bite to eat, maybe, shop in some of the stores. So it was a driver.
How long
Did
did
you
you
guys
have
do
them out?
any? Oh, go ahead.
How long did you have them out, Bob?
16 days, 3 weekends.
Did you do any type of ROI? Like, did you ask your
We did.
retailers?
We surveyed our retail. We surveyed all of our businesses after. Of course, we didn't hear from everybody, but overwhelmingly positive, especially for food. And for places like Kilwins, we have a Kilwins in Westfield, which is ice cream and fudge and whatever. And obviously an ice cream place is not too busy in the winter. And so
Yeah.
we did this in mid-March and it was huge for them.
Can I voluntold you to write an article for the next newsletter on that, Bob?
I like that word.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, awesome. End of the month, it's due.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments, things you want to discuss?
When can we get together in person, Courtney?
Oh, we are having a conversation. I'm trying to get our conference committee going. So we're going to have a conversation about that. But I have contemplated one of these summer meetings, forums or something, trying to do like an outdoor happy hour. And some of our, our Medford board member runs a brewery with outdoor space. So maybe we can meet there, or Rahway is offered. So I think over the summer, we're going to try to do some type of outdoor social thing. And then we're also talking about the fall conference, whether we can do some type of hybrid model, which, by the way, this gives me my excuse to say, don't judge me for drinking Gatorade. I got shot number 2 this morning and I'm trying I heard drinking Gatorade helps. We'll see.
Really? I didn't know that. I got mine
Yeah.
yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
starting to feel a
And you're
little
okay.
achy.
Yeah, I bet you are. So yeah, I heard the electrolytes, might make you help. So if
So
there's
in
no,
Long Branch, there's that 200 Ocean. They have the deck. That would be a place we can socialize.
that would be neat. Long Branch should become a member.
It's Pure Village. Yeah, that would be. Kushner. It is a check.
Kushner, there's a name.
There you go.
Courtney, can you
yes.
show that last screen with the contact info?
Oh, Marta, can you put that up or put it in the chat? Either way, your contact info.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
you.
easier if you throw it in the chat and then people can just copy and paste it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Where's the chat?
Oh, just click on the chat box in your menu on the bottom and it should pop it open for you.
Oh,
It's only been a year. I don't know.
So a reminder, this video, because people kept asking me, the video and the PowerPoint will be posted. The video has to like process and download and I have to re-upload it. So it takes a while. It might not happen today. But it'll be up on the website where you registered. We owe all of it. So if you want to go back and see old ones too, you're welcome to. Like I said, stay tuned for cannabis. And some of you, I'll keep note of some of you who said you've already said yes to cannabis. So if you want to like talk about if you have done anything proactive in thinking about it, we'd love to have you participate in May.
Vic would be good at that. He dealt with it here.
Okay, Vic, we're tapping you for the May date. And then, Beth, yes.
I was just going to say with the cannabis, I was told by a couple of people from the towns that a lot of towns are opting out right now because they can always opt back in. It just gives them more time to decide. If they opt in, they're stuck for a while.
Yeah.
So I saw the cat walk by.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of towns are opting out. I'm not sure it's all because of the cannabis and they don't want the marijuana. I think they just want more time to figure this out.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to hit it from 2 angles. Was the request. One was, how does the town deal with it if you are going to go ahead with it, and what do you want to do with your ordinance and all that? And then the second was employer liability. And this particularly came up, Chris Bernardo, who runs commercial district services, like, I have people driving big trucks, right? And so what is my liability and what can they and can't do and tell them? And so I think people want to hear this stuff. So stay tuned. More information on that coming soon. June, the open space type of discussion, safe streets around COVID as part of the New Jersey Bike and Walk. And then in July, the NJEDA programs, we should have more information about those and we'll be sharing that. So that's next steps. And Marta, did you get that stuff in the chat? I don't see it. Your contact in the chat.
You guys see it? I put it
Nope.
in.
I don't see it. Does anyone else?
Is it just to Linda Morgan?
Oh yeah, change the little thing. Maybe she direct messaged you, so you got to change it to everyone.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, look, I'm getting more offers for outdoor events. People are messaging me. So we'll see. We'll figure out something for the summer, for the warmer months. So did you get that in there, Marta? Still not seeing. I'll get you all the info. There it is. There it is. Marta got it in there. All right. So stay tuned. Thank you all and have a wonderful weekend. And Nancy, I hope it doesn't hit you too hard.
Same with you. Same with
Thanks.
you.
All right. Be well, everybody.
Thanks,
Good to see
Marta.
you.
Great
Right.
job.
Take care.
Bye all.
Bye.
Just leaving it up for a minute in case anyone wants to copy and paste.